After a car wreck left me bruised and alone, I sent, "Please help." Silence. Hours later, my brother tagged everyone in a post. "The family's complete." Not a word about me. 4 days later, still limping, my phone showed 53 missed calls and a Venmo request. $4 $600 cabin weekend. Then Dad texted, "We can't fix this without you." I sent 50 cents with the note. I remember the crunch of metal more than the pain. That and the sound of my own voice calling out in a panic as my car spun across the ice-slicked road. It was early February, right after one of those surprise Midwest snowfalls that everyone underestimates. The city hadn't salted the back roads yet, and I was driving home after picking up meds for my mom, meds she hadn't even asked for but I remembered she needed. The irony still pisses me off. I wasn't speeding. I wasn't distracted. The car just lost control. The back wheels slid out, I tapped the brakes, and next thing I knew, I was sideways. The front bumper hit a utility pole, airbags exploded, and my head snapped hard against the window. Everything went white. My ears rang. Then silence. I sat there with blood in my mouth and glass in my jacket, barely able to move my leg. The pain hadn't even fully hit yet, but I knew something was wrong. An older couple saw it happen and called 911. I remember trying to smile when they asked if I was okay. I told them my name was Mike. That's all I could manage. At the hospital, they ran scans. Torn ligament in my left leg. Bad bruising along my ribs. A mild concussion. The doctor said I was lucky, which was funny, because lying there alone in a hallway with a torn-up body and nobody to call felt like the exact opposite of lucky. I didn't call my parents right away. Or my siblings. I figured they'd check in eventually. We had a group chat that always buzzed nonstop. Someone's dog doing something stupid, memes, last-minute plans that always somehow involved me footing the bill. So I just sent one message. "Please help." No context. I figured that would be enough to get someone's attention. Just 3 words. Because when someone like me says that, the guy who always has it together, who shows up, who handles everything, you'd think people would notice. They didn't. Not even a question mark. No text. No call. Nothing. 4 hours later, as I sat in a wheelchair in the hospital lobby waiting for the cab I had to order myself, I got the notification. My brother had posted a group photo on Instagram. The family, parents, sister, him, even his new girlfriend who I'd met once, all standing in front of a fireplace with wine glasses in hand, tagged at a cabin 3 hours north. The caption? "The family's complete." I read it 3 times. I wasn't tagged. I wasn't mentioned. I stared at that photo, still in my hospital gown, ice pack on my knee, trying to decide if I was dreaming. I scrolled through the comments. Laughing emojis. Hard eyes. Someone from church commented, "Beautiful family." My mom replied with a heart. That night, I got home alone in a cab and crawled up the stairs to my second-floor apartment. I had to sit on each step and scoot. I hadn't eaten since the night before. There was no food in the fridge. No one offered to drop by. No one asked how I was. 4 days passed. I didn't text them again. I didn't say a word. I lay in bed icing my leg, heating up cans of soup, trying to think of what I did wrong. On the 4th day, I opened my phone. I wasn't sure what I expected. 53 missed calls. All from them. And a Venmo request from my sister, $4,600, cabin weekend. Like nothing had happened. Like it was just business as usual. I was always the one who paid. "You're doing so well, Mike," they'd say, like that justified them dumping their expenses on me. I'd always made sure they had what they needed. Even when they were reckless. Even when it meant I had to skip things I wanted for myself. Then, right under the Venmo request, a message from Dad. "We can't fix this without you." That was the moment something inside me snapped, not in anger, but clarity. I opened Venmo. Typed in 50 cents. Wrote, "Consider this your down payment for karma." Hit send. I leaned back and laughed, not because it was funny, but because something had finally clicked. They didn't ignore me by accident. They just didn't care. And if they didn't care, I owed them nothing. They'd forgotten who kept the lights on. Now it was my turn to remind them. They didn't respond right away. I expected maybe some outrage. Maybe my brother would call me out in the group chat, Or my dad would blow up my phone like he used to when he found out I helped Grandma with rent instead of covering his latest tax situation. But there was nothing. Just this weird, eerie silence. I checked the family group chat. Still active, just without me. They were planning some wine tasting thing for the weekend after the cabin trip. My name didn't come up once. It was like I'd been cut out of the picture entirely. Not even blocked. Just ignored. It was almost impressive, in a way. Then on Friday, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it ring. Then another one. Then a text came through from my sister, short and panicked. "You serious about cutting us off?" She hadn't even asked how I was doing. I didn't answer. Not that day. Not the next either. I just sat back and watched as the panic slowly built. The missed calls turned into voicemails. I didn't listen to them. Then texts, not just from my siblings, but from my mom's number, then dad's, and eventually a few cousins I hadn't heard from in months. They all had the same tone, confused, then annoyed, then borderline desperate. By the end of the week, my brother sent a full spreadsheet. An actual Excel file with family obligations, itemized by date. Flights he had booked. On my behalf. Vacation deposits, even a line that said, "Dad's birthday gift from all of us, Mike handles payment." No. How are you feeling? Just a total of $7,280 marked as expected from Mike. I didn't say a word. I just opened my bank app and started making changes. First, I canceled the automatic payment for my sister's student loans. She had no idea I'd been covering the interest every month. Then I closed the joint account I'd opened with my brother 3 years ago, the one he used as a backup when he overdrafted his own checking. There was $312 in there. I took it. I paused at my parents' utility account. I'd been covering their electric and gas bills since last winter. They never asked. I just offered back when I thought they were tired and struggling and doing their best. But now, click. Done. Saturday came. I was still limping, but I managed to drive myself to physical therapy. Used the rental car. The therapist asked if anyone would be helping me at home. I said no. She looked concerned. I didn't explain. That night, I opened the group chat again. I hadn't said a word since. "Please help." My brother had renamed the group Family Core. The only ones left were him, my sister, my parents, and the cousin who still owed me $900. Then the kicker. A new Venmo request. This time from my dad. $1,200. Emergency dental for your mother. No message. No explanation. Just the assumption that I'd come through, like always. I didn't send money. Instead, I sent another 50 cents with a note. Let her smile reflect her decisions. That night, my uncle called me. Not for money. Just to ask how I was doing. We hadn't talked in months. He said he heard through someone that I'd been in an accident. I told him the truth. Every detail. He listened. He didn't say anything dramatic, didn't swear vengeance or offer fake sympathy. Just said, "About time you let them stand on their own." It was the first time I didn't feel crazy. 2 days later, I got a card in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting, Grandma. Inside was $20 and a note that said, "For groceries or something just for you. Proud of you." I cried for the first time since the accident. By the third week, they started unraveling. Quietly at first. Like a rope fraying one thread at a time. The calls hadn't stopped. My brother had switched to using Google Voice numbers, trying to outsmart a block I never even bothered to set up. I let every call ring out. The voicemails were short, desperate, full of fake cheer. One said he needed just a little help fixing the truck. The same truck I gave him 2 Christmases ago, paid in full, insured, titled in his name because he needed a fresh start. Now he needed repairs, couldn't get to work, and he figured I'd step in like always. I didn't reply. The next day, Mom texted, one of those vague, heavy messages that's meant to sound like concern but is just a guilt trip in disguise. "Please call your father. He's upset." I didn't. I already knew why. And then it came. Exactly the kind of line they used when they felt control slipping. "We didn't raise you to be this cold." I stared at it for a while. I wanted to reply with something sharp. Something final. But that would have fed it. Letting them hear my silence was louder. That same afternoon, my friend Sarah sent me a screenshot. My sister had posted a black and white photo of our family, an old one, pre-Instagram, pre-resentment. She captioned it, "Sometimes the people you trust most are the ones who teach you why you shouldn't." No tags. No names. Just a perfectly timed stab. I was at physical therapy when I saw it. My leg throbbed through the bandages. I couldn't even bend it fully yet. The therapist asked how I was doing. I told her I was fine. I didn't say that watching your family treat your absence like a personal insult was worse than the accident itself. Because it wasn't just abandonment. It was rejection of every version of me they had come to depend on, the ATM, the crisis manager, the human insurance policy. And that was exactly what they were mad about. Not the silence. Not the accident. Just the inconvenience. I spent the next day clearing out more financial loose ends. Closed out the backup card my brother had linked to my name, just for emergencies. Removed myself as co-signer on my sister's car lease. Called the bank to take my name off the home equity line they used to remodel the kitchen, something they said I'd be invested in, as part of the family legacy. Then I sent a pizza to my uncle's place. Meat lovers, extra cheese. No note. He texted me a simple, "Thanks, kid," an hour later. Next morning, my grandmother left a voicemail. "I heard what's happening. Just wanted to say I'm proud of you. Call me when you feel like it." No pressure. I did call. Not that day, but a few days later. We talked for 2 hours about her garden, her knees, and the time she caught me sneaking cookies before dinner when I was 6. She didn't mention the family once. Neither did I. It was the best conversation I'd had in years. That same week, a coworker who still lives near my parents sent me a message. Said she saw my dad outside, trying to light the pilot in their furnace with a lighter and a yardstick. Apparently, the heating got shut off. I didn't laugh, but I didn't feel bad either. I scrolled social media later that night. My sister's boyfriend had posted a story about canceling their trip to Napa. "Setbacks," he wrote, followed by a sad face. Her comments were locked. 2 days later, my brother started a GoFundMe. No joke. "Unexpected hardship. Any help is appreciated," it said. The photo was him in front of his truck, looking just pathetic enough to pull at sympathy. 5 donations, all under $50. 2 were from relatives. 1 from my dad. Not me. Then, finally, a message in the group chat. The first one in days. "Dad, everyone come to the hospital Friday. We need to talk." That was it. Then a private message followed. "Mike, please. We can't fix this without you." I just sent back a thumbs up. I wasn't going for dramatic. I was just ready. Friday came. I didn't dress for war. No dramatic entrance, no speech rehearsed in my head. I wore a hoodie, limped into the hospital on my still sore leg, and pressed the elevator button with a thumb that still had faint scars from the glass. 2nd floor. Physical therapy wing. Doors opened. And there they were. All of them. Mom sat rigid in a corner chair, arms crossed like she was bracing for a storm. Dad stood near the window, pretending to look outside but shifting on his feet like a man on trial. My sister sat with her legs tucked under her, eyes glued to her phone. My brother paced near the reception desk, glancing up every time the elevator dinged. They looked worse than I remembered. Tired. Uneasy. But mostly unfamiliar. Like a group of people I used to know. No one greeted me. I walked right past the empty chairs and leaned against the wall. They waited, expecting me to say something first. I didn't. My dad broke the silence. "You got our messages." I nodded. Nothing else. My mom jumped in. "We need to talk, as a family. Things got out of hand." I let out a breath. Not a laugh, not anger, just exhaustion. "Yeah. They did." My sister looked up, half defensive. "Is this about money again? Because you've been weird about it." That set something off. I took a step forward, just enough to make them look up. "I was in a car wreck. Spent the night in a hospital bed alone. I sent a message asking for help. Not for money. Not to pay your bills. Just help. A ride. A check-in. And 4 hours later, you posted a photo caption, 'The family's complete.'" She blinked like she didn't remember writing it. My brother rubbed his face. "We thought it was just one of your dramatic messages." You've always handled things. We figured you would again. And that's the problem, I said. No one spoke. Then something I didn't expect. My dad sat down slowly. He looked smaller than I remembered. We failed you. All of us. You're right. It was never supposed to be your job to keep everything afloat. You shouldn't have been the one covering our bills, saving our mistakes, holding this mess together. Even my sister was quiet now. My mom finally looked up at me, and for once, didn't say anything to deflect or blame. Then my dad kept going. But you have to understand something. You taught us it was okay. You never said no. You paid, you fixed, you smiled through it. You were the hero. Until you weren't. I didn't say anything. Because as much as I wanted to fight that, some part of me knew he was right. I had trained them. Not with words, but with every time I picked up the slack. Every time I bailed someone out. Every time I made it easier for them not to change. My brother stood, pulled something from his jacket. An envelope. We scraped together some cash. I know it doesn't fix anything, but we want to at least help with your recovery. I took it. Held it for a second. Then handed it back. You keep it. You'll need it more than I do. He didn't fight me. Just nodded once, slow. And then the biggest surprise came. My dad leaned forward. We're selling the lake cabin. We talked about it. The taxes, the upkeep, it's stupid. We always leaned on you to cover the extras. We'll split whatever comes from it. Fairly. I stared at him, trying to gauge if this was just another guilt move. But it didn't feel like one. Maybe this wasn't their redemption arc. Maybe it was just their bottom. Maybe I'd stopped rescuing them long enough for the fall to finally hurt. I didn't forgive them. Not in that moment. But I nodded once. All right. That was it. I left without a hug. No dramatic goodbye. Just limped back to the elevator with nothing in my hands and the envelope still sitting on the bench behind me. For the first time, they knew I wasn't bluffing. And for the first time, I felt free. The days after that hospital meeting were quiet, the kind of quiet that feels like the moment after a thunderclap. The air still felt charged, but the noise had stopped. No more calls. No more Venmo requests. No guilt trips or passive-aggressive posts. They had finally gone silent, and I wasn't sure if it was surrender or retreat. Either way, I didn't chase them. I kept going to physical therapy, working through pain that felt a lot like healing. The limp was still there, but it was getting better. I moved slower, but I moved without help. My fridge stayed full because I filled it. My rent got paid because I earned it. And for the first time in years, I wasn't funneling money into other people's fires. Then something strange happened. I started noticing what had always been there, hidden in plain sight. My bank account stopped draining at the end of every month. The balance sat steady, even climbed a little. I bought a decent pair of shoes for the first time in a while. Nothing flashy, just supportive, well-made, comfortable. And I paid for them with zero hesitation. That moment hit harder than I expected. Not the shoes, the fact that I didn't have to check if someone else needed that money first. Then my uncle called. Said he'd heard about the cabin. They're actually selling it? He asked. Yeah. Looks like it. He chuckled. Good. Place always smelled like mildew and disappointment anyway. I laughed harder than I had in weeks. But beneath the joke, something real was shifting. Not just in me, but around me. My uncle dropped by a few days later with groceries, unannounced, just to return the favor, he said. Brought my favorite coffee beans and a box of oranges. He didn't stay long. Just said, "You doing all right?" and left before I could answer. And then, the text from Grandma. Lunch Sunday? Just us. No drama. I went. We sat in her tiny kitchen. She made chicken salad and poured lemonade into those old plastic cups that smelled faintly like cabinets. She didn't say much at first. Just watched me eat, as if making sure I wasn't skipping meals anymore. Then, out of nowhere, she said, "You were the only one who showed up when my roof collapsed last year. Not your dad. Not your sister. You." I nodded. I remember. She looked at me with this quiet, focused expression. You don't have to do that anymore. Not for people who don't show up back. That stuck with me for days. And just as I was starting to settle into this new rhythm, the unexpected happened. My brother showed up at my door. No call. No warning. Just knocked, holding a six-pack of beer and looking like someone who had practiced what to say on the drive over. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. He stood there for a second, awkward. "I'm selling the truck," he said. "Trying to clear some debts. Figure out my own stuff." I waited. He scratched the back of his neck. "I've been a leech. We all have. But I'm trying. I know that doesn't fix anything." It didn't. But it was something. Then he handed me a folded piece of paper. A printout of a GoFundMe, the one I never donated to, but now marked as closed. Underneath, a list of transactions. And at the bottom, a handwritten note. "I'm paying back everyone who gave. Even the ones who didn't ask for it." I looked up. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He wasn't begging. He was trying. "Take care of yourself," I said. He nodded and left. Later that night, I looked around my apartment, quiet, clean, simple, and realized something. This wasn't the collapse of my family. This was the part where I stopped being their foundation, so they could finally learn to build something on their own. 3 months after the accident, the limp was barely noticeable. I still felt a tightness in my legs sometimes, especially on cold mornings, but I take that over the way things were before, constantly pulled in 50 directions, bleeding out slowly under the weight of other people's needs. I didn't just recover physically. I rebuilt. My finances were stronger than they'd ever been. No sudden bank alerts. No unexpected overdrafts from accounts tied to someone else's crisis. I started cooking again. Real meals. Nothing fancy, but something about dicing onions for myself, just me, felt like reclaiming something I hadn't even realized I'd lost. Then the final email came. Subject line, cabin closing documents. I opened it, expecting the usual nonsense. But it was real. They had done it. The lake cabin, that tired old symbol of forced togetherness and unspoken expectations, was sold. And true to what my dad promised in the hospital, the money was being split 5 ways. Equally. A direct deposit hit my account the next morning. Clean. No strings. I stared at the amount. Not life-changing, but enough. Enough to do something small but meaningful. So I booked a trip. Just for me. No family, no obligations, no guilt-ridden texts begging for. Just a little help. A cabin of my own, in Oregon by the coast, with foggy mornings and silence thick enough to finally think clearly. That same day, I stopped by Grandma's. She handed me a small envelope, not with money, but a photo, me at 10 years old covered in mud from the garden, grinning like I just conquered the world. "You've always been strong," she said. "But strong doesn't mean giving everything away." I hugged her. First real hug in months. Before I left, she said something else. "They'll try again, you know. Maybe not now. Maybe not next year. But at some point, someone's going to call. Probably late at night. Probably with some urgent need. And they'll count on the old mic picking up." I didn't answer right away. She just smiled. "You'll know what to do." 2 days later, I boarded the plane. And for the first time, I wasn't flying away from a problem. I was flying towards something. Still unsure what, exactly. A new chapter, maybe? Or just a long exhale I'd been holding for years. Then, just before takeoff, my phone buzzed. No name. Just a number I didn't recognize. The text said, "Hey. I know it's been a while. Can we talk?" No signature. Just that. I stared at it as the plane began to taxi. I didn't answer. Not yet. It's been just over 6 weeks since I got that message before takeoff. I was sitting by the window, watching clouds rise like mountains, holding my phone like it might burn through my hand. I didn't recognize the number. No name. Just that short, careful message. "Hey. I know it's been a while. Can we talk?" I didn't reply. Not on the plane. Not after I landed. Not even the next day. Instead, I sat in a rental cabin in Oregon, alone, wrapped in a sweater that smelled like cedar, listening to the ocean roll in and out like a soft warning. That place gave me more peace in a week than the last 10 years combined. I hiked, wrote, cooked simple meals, and for once, there wasn't a single person demanding something on the other end of my phone. But the message stuck with me. I waited a week before I looked the number up. Google search. Nothing. Then I checked one of those apps that tell you if a number is linked to a contact you've deleted. And there it was. my mother. I left the cabin 2 days later. Back home, the world hadn't changed. My city was still loud. Work emails had piled up. Life kept moving. But I'd changed. Quietly. I didn't feel like the same person who once rearranged his whole life to keep the people around him comfortable. The next weekend, I called my grandmother. Told her about the trip. She laughed when I told her I almost adopted a stray dog I found near the coast. Then her voice got quiet. "They've been circling," she said, "asking if I've heard from you. I haven't told them much." I told her I appreciated that. Then she hesitated and added, "Your dad sold the boat. The old one. Said he wanted to pay off some of what he owes. Said he wants to start over. Whatever that means." A few days later, I got a letter in the mail. Real letter. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. My sister. It wasn't long. Just 3 lines. "I didn't realize how much you carried. I don't expect anything. I just wanted to say thank you. I'm applying for jobs. Real ones. Hope you're good." There was no manipulation in it. No guilt. Just honesty. I put the letter in a drawer and didn't respond. That same week, my brother texted. Not the usual nonsense. Just this. Started making payments to everyone I owed. "It'll take time, but I'll finish it." That one I replied to. "Good. Keep going." He just sent a thumbs up emoji. And didn't ask for anything else. Then, 2 nights ago, the message from my dad. No intro. No small talk. "I won't reach out again. Just wanted to say I miss you. And I'm sorry for not seeing it sooner." That one sat in my notifications for a while. I didn't respond. Not because I'm angry. I'm not. Just not ready. Maybe never will be. The last thing I'll say is this. I thought cutting off my family would destroy me. That I'd feel empty or cruel or alone. But the truth? It was the first time I felt whole. They didn't fall apart without me, but they had to figure out how to stand without leaning on me. And maybe that was the most generous thing I ever gave them. So here I am. Still working. Still healing. Still choosing peace over obligation. And no, I haven't adopted that dog yet. But I'm thinking about it. Sometimes I catch myself waiting for the other shoe to drop, like maybe one day they'll show up at my door again, acting like nothing happened. But the difference now is, I know I won't answer the same way. I've learned how to live without being the safety net for people who only noticed me when they were falling. And that silence? It finally feels like freedom.